Hi, I'm Eddie Burke. I've been the bartender at the Hollywood Improv for 40 years, and this is my podcast, Eddie's Bar at the Improv. Okay, hey guys, this is Eddie Burke. Welcome to another pandemic episode of Eddie's Bar at the Improv podcast. Thanks for joining me, and I just have the best guest I could have, the lovely Miss Aida Rodriguez today. She is an actress, a comedian, a writer, a podcaster. She contributes to the Young Turks. She does everything. Aida, thanks a lot for being here, sweetie. I love you.
I love you too. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, thank you. I wanna start briefly with your childhood, if that's okay with you.
Sure. I mean, that's where everybody wants to know.
Yeah, you had kind of a rough upbringing, you know. It's
Yeah.
like, you want to tell us about that a little bit? I believe you were, it was all in the family, but abducted and kidnapped and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
So I was one of those kids that got kidnapped by one of my parents first. My mother took me from my dad, and we were living in another country. So my mom was like Sally Fields and not without my daughter. Like we left Dominican Republic, and she changed my name. She snuck me out of the country and brought me back to the United States and changed my last name. My last name is not Rodriguez, it's Paradas, which is my father's real last name.
Uh-huh.
And she
Ida Margarita Paradas Rodriguez.
Yeah, that's right. And he tried, he's been trying to find me. He had been trying to find me my whole life, and he found me on social media. But yeah, she took me from him. She was really young and she was disgruntled. And so I was a vendetta for against my dad. So she took me from him.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Um,
how did you feel during that time? I mean, as a kid, how old were you?
I was little. I was very little. When I got back, I started school. I thought that my father abandoned me. That was what I was led to believe my whole life, is that he had left me. And when I was growing up, it wasn't cool not to have your father's last name. Like now we've reached this whole, like there's everybody so liberal, not everyone, but there's this liberal perspective where people don't shame you for stuff like that, where they used to shame you before. So I just felt like, I felt abandoned, and
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for my father. I was waiting for him to come get me. I just used to wait all the time, hoping that he would come, he would show up.
Yeah, that's tough. I can't imagine going through that. I mean, I can't even, empathize because I have no idea what that would feel like. Having one parent against another and you in the middle and not knowing whatever. But you came out pretty good. Look at you now. You're looking
I mean,
great.
I'm a stand-up comedian. I just tell it all on stage now and shame them for all the shame that I experienced as a kid. Now
Great.
they will live in shame.
So did that kind of start you into comedy, going through all that?
It did, in a weird way, because I used to watch Johnny Carson, and I remember wishing that Johnny Carson was my father, because I used to think Johnny Carson was the funniest. I remember walking around the house saying, "I did not know that." Like and it's so funny because I'm not the cleanest comic. I curse on stage, but I'm not like dirty, filthy either. But it's just so funny how comedy has evolved, because now people think that you have to be super edgy and super blue or whatever. But he was so funny just in the simplest of ways,
Hmm.
within the restraints of broadcast television back then. And he really just made me feel that like being funny was healing. Like I used to just look forward, because I wasn't supposed to be watching it because it was late, and I used to find my way to watching him, because it felt good to watch Johnny Carson. He used to make fun of everybody. Nobody
Right.
was,
Hmm.
he wasn't political. Like he wasn't, I remember him just being just, everybody got it. And that was
Yeah.
what made it so fun.
He was just an entertainer, and he'd have everybody and anybody. It didn't matter what political side you were on. Everybody was equal. Come on, I'll make fun of you. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, he was fun.
Did you look at stand-up, since you mentioned that word, sort of as a healing process for you?
I did, because I used to see people whose lives were a reflection of some of the struggle that I had. And so like I remember just Richard Pryor, just listening to stuff I wasn't supposed to be listening to when I was that young. But I just remember
Such a
listening.
bad girl.
Yeah, I just love to laugh. Like I would just I mean, I would rather listen to stand-up comedians than to watch a TV show. Like I thought they were just the storytellers. And I don't know, like I remember Richard Pryor telling a story about, he got high, he was talking about his dog. And it's one of the funniest things I ever heard. And I just remember being really young, listening to them, and just remembering that at that moment nothing else mattered but being just laughing with that person. And it was escapism. I would just like, more than anything, it resonated with me. It was like a song without music.
Yeah, I totally understand. That's great. I mean, when you kind of see that when somebody else is doing it and making it a reality for yourself, it's it's a big plus for you. How did you and when did you actually start doing stand-up? On where? Here?
Yeah, in LA. The Improv is the first place where I got past. Rita Piazza saw me and knew that I was a stand-up. And it's funny because I would watch her watch people, and she would be like, because she makes these noises like, like that person was not like, she could just see a stand-up and say, I know a stand-up when I see one. And that's when she said to me, and I remember wearing these ridiculous boots on stage that were very distracting. And she was like, "Don't you ever wear those boots on stage again. They're paying attention to your boots. They're not paying attention to your jokes. And you actually have jokes." But it was in here. I'm going on. I'm in, I think, my 13th year in comedy. And I started in Los Angeles, which people told me would be impossible because you don't start in LA, but I just happened to live here. And I remember going to the Westwood Brewing Company to go do the open mics and learning how to develop a set.
Uh-huh.
Just really, I have this I operate from both sides of my brain, and sometimes it's tormenting because, I look at comedy as a science and understanding like all the structural part of comedy. And then I also look at it as an art form. It has to be entertaining and creative. And those two would clash in my head. And I just remember just dedicating myself to writing all the jokes that I would one day do on stage, but I didn't have the courage to actually do them until like a year later. So I started writing my set before I actually even went on stage. I used to work at Teleflora. I used to take orders for flower orders for all the big assholes in LA. And
And that's a lot, isn't it?
the worst people on the planet order flowers. I'm going to tell you that much.
They can't think of anything else to buy for their other.
Yeah, it's like the guilt gift of the century.
That's right.
So I started writing, and then I just remember going to the Westwood Brewing Company by myself, just saying I'm gonna just go up and do a joke, and I got hooked.
You just went up and did it.
Yeah, it was bombing that taught me. I bombed, and I was like, oh, I gotta crack this nut. Like, how do I take all of these things that I think are funny and make all of these people that come from different places all join me in this thought and laugh at it? So it just became a challenge for me. Like, I was like, I'm gonna make this happen.
A challenge that you have obviously met and did make happen. You mentioned Carson and you mentioned Pryor. Do you have people that are you kind of idolize, look up to as comedians as you were getting older, as you were growing up? Or
Oh yeah, I love George Carlin. And it's funny because like a little Puerto Rican girl from the ghetto is not supposed to like George Carlin when I name him amongst my greats. Like, people chastise me, tell me who I'm supposed to like. But I always felt that George Carlin and Richard Pryor combined, is what I feel like. And not to say that I'm in any way either of those two greats, but that's the space that I live in. Like, I like to talk about social issues, but from my perspective of my own life, as opposed to just preaching to people what they should be, you know, what political party you should belong to, or
Right.
what. I was like, yo, this is what I feel about sexism, and this is how I see it because of how it
Well,
happened to me.
I
As,
think I think what you say is very true, but I also think that you are your own comedian.
yeah,
You know, I'm not sure exactly how to say this, but it's like, I mean, you may love Carlin, you may love Pryor, you may love whoever, but no matter what, in the long run, you become your own personality, or
thank
you are your own personality, and that's what you present on stage, and that's what wins, even if you would say somebody else's joke.
right.
It's still you, it's still your personality.
Oh, I appreciate it. I love comedy so much, and I just think that I'm not one of those people that believes in editing comics or censoring them. I think you should be able to say what you want to say. You should just be able
Mm-hmm.
to deal with the consequences of whatever you say. But you know, I think that comedians have to be awkward and uncomfortable and offensive, and
Mm-hmm.
because that's just how you grow and you evolve into whatever it is that you are supposed to be. And that,
Well, I agree. It's comedy and comedians, and I'm not a comedian by any means. It's like if you know, it's comedians that keep us on our feet, in the sense that what's going on in the world, and most comedians, if not 95% of you guys, are like really work hard and are pretty intelligent, because you can't talk about topical things if you're not knowing what's going on.
yeah, and most of us are the outliers of our wherever we come from, and we meet at that place. So
Hmm.
that's what people don't understand about comedy. Like, you know, when we lose one in our community, like you see us all come together, and there's nobody talking about black, white, woman, man. It's just we are usually the misfits that leave our groups, and we all come together because we think differently, and we want to tell stories, and we want to give voices to the people who don't have voices, and it's just a very unique group to belong to. And yeah, there are some people, but I love Bill Burr. I love Dave Chappelle. I love Kathleen Madigan. Um,
Hmm.
Kathleen Madigan, as a woman, really gave way for someone like me who could just be. I'm not a, you know, and I don't try to police anybody. I think everybody's voice deserves to be heard. But I'm not a sexual comic, like, and I'm kind of awkward. And as
Uh-huh.
a Latin woman, like a lot of people would expect me to go in that direction, and that's just not my space. Like I was a Lincoln Douglas debater in high school,
Oh,
so
really?
I got this weird like combination of things that makes me who I am. And so watching Kathleen Madigan with her blazer and her jeans on, just be telling jokes that men could tell, anybody could tell because they're not
Hmm.
gender specific because of the way that she thinks.
Right.
It's like somebody who I really admire. And even though I do tell jokes that have to do about women, that have to do with women and the perspective of womanhood, I still never want to get trapped where that's all I do. And so someone like Kathleen, who, you know, I just love her. I love Lori Kilmartin. She always makes
Hmm.
me laugh. I watch her live tweet her mother's death, and I'm like, she's a genius. Like
Yeah.
people to be able to process her grief through comedy is just that's the goal, right? For so many of us. Um,
That's a great outlet, I would imagine, under those circumstances. When you graduated high school, did you become a model after that, or?
I started before I graduated. I got scouted when I was about 14 years old. I started before. It was not, you know, I knew I was supposed to be on stage. I knew I was supposed to have a mic. I just hadn't, I always knew I wanted to be a stand-up comedian, but it just felt so far away from me because everyone
Mhm.
around me told me that it was crazy. But I started modeling really young and I didn't fit in. All I did was make fun of the models and crack jokes behind stage. Like I was the obnoxious one because I would find the funny in that world. And no diss to models, because you know they starve a lot so that you can look at those clothes, and they struggle and they have their own
Right.
journey. But it just, I didn't fit in.
Now, how long did you do it?
I modeled, man, on and off. I think I modeled for like 14 years because I made a lot of money. I survived modeling. I did a lot of catalogs and hair
Great.
stuff, but I just didn't. I was really good at runway. I won a lot of runway competitions, but the best
Well,
part of my runway career was when I fell on stage.
well, here's an idea. I just hit me. You should actually host one of those things
Oh,
and just do your own thing as they're coming down the aisle. Like here comes, I don't know, Heidi Klum and her whatever, and it's like you go into your thing. But I think
sounds
what a
fun.
difference. That would be great. I mean, to have like modeling comedy. I've never seen a model smile on the
Oh,
runway. Not that I've seen a lot of them, but it's got to be unique.
it's because they're hungry, Eddie. They're starving.
They're looking forward to their next meal.
They're so hungry.
When you started around what year? 2008.
Oh, 08, oh 08. I started 08.
Were there other comics with you then that are still with you now that were good friends?
Oh yeah, look, at my school of comedy, we actually have a good class. So I started with Byron Bowers, and I started together. He had been doing stand up a little bit longer than I had. Um, who else? Like Tony Baker was with me.
Hmm.
I was with so many guys. Candace Thompson and I were in the same Jackie Fabulous. Because Tiffanny was before me. She lapped me. Like she's been doing stand up twice as long as me. It's Shantae Wayans. Like I'm friends with a lot. I mean, most of my friends are comedians, but
Well, that's good. And now you were on one of Tiffany's shows or a show. I may have this name wrong. They Be Ready?
is they ready?
They Ready?
Mm-hmm.
How was that? I mean, I love Tiffany. By the way, guys, it's Tiffany Haddish that we're talking about.
It was great. It was something we said when I did Last Comic Standing. She did a reality show called Funniest Wins that was on TBS, and we had made a pact because every time we do something, we think we're gonna make it,
Hmm.
and we were both like, whoever goes, the other one throws the rope back, and we both did the reality shows. I think she was a finalist. She was a finalist, and so was I. And then nothing happened. And then when she did Girls Trip, she called me. She calls me all. We talk all the time, and she said, "I want to do this comedy special, and I want to give you guys a platform." And I thought it was very thoughtful and very nice. I just didn't think she was going to be able to do it with the timing because everything was happening so fast, and she did it.
Hmm. For her.
Yeah, and she
Yeah.
did it. She was like, she took a pay cut, and she did what a lot of, you hear about all these multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix. You
Right.
don't ever hear of any of them sharing that money. She actually,
No, you don't, do you? None of them going like, look, I know you're hurting. Here's a few
oh,
dollars.
she gave us jobs though. She didn't give us money. She just employed us in a way to
That's
make sure.
okay. That's the same thing.
Yeah,
She gave you a job, and obviously and hopefully that kind of job leads to other jobs
yeah, it has. It really helped.
as you go. Your childhood being what it was. Do you have children?
Yeah, I do.
Two,
My
right?
kids have gone to the Improv. Yeah, they've been there. They've gone to the shows. Um,
How do you use your upbringing to bring up your kids in the sense that you had such a rough time? Obviously they're not having that time, but still it's a
I took
crazy time.
It is. I took notes, and I didn't do a lot of the things that they did to me. But you know what? I did a lot of reading. I've always read. That's how I felt. I remember being really young and reading The Jungle, Upton Sinclair's The Jungle as a very young kid. I remember a teacher telling me, you want to get out of here? The way you get out of here is reading. Readers are leaders. So I read a lot of books about not parenting books, but psychology books to understand my mother's traumas and why she did a lot of the things out of survival to me. And so I just made a decision. I have journals like all over my house, and I write of that, just how I would work things out with my kids. And I just started talking to them when they were really little. I never hit them. I always just, because my mom used to hit us, and I always felt like that was barbaric. Like, I was like, why would you beat on your daughter and then say that you'll kill a man who hits your daughter? Like, you are hitting us. You're conditioning
It's almost, yeah. It's like you were just almost killing me.
Yeah, so you're conditioning me for a beating, and then you want to condemn somebody else for doing it. How am I going to even say that I'm getting beat if I'm thinking this is normal? When I do something wrong, you hit me. And I just felt like that there was something wrong with that. So I just started reading, trying to unpack what the traumas that my family was dealing with and why we went through so many things. And with my kids, I just started talking them through things. And they both started reading really young. And for some reason, that the gift that was given to me by Miss Flanagan in the 3rd grade, I gave to my kids, and it just worked out for us. I removed them from my environment, though. I raised them completely away from where I grew up.
I think, I think that's great. I think the fact, it's very hard to raise your kids, period. Mm-hmm. It's even more difficult, I would imagine, in the entertainment business, bringing your kids up. If you have them come in and hang out, they get a certain kind of, I don't know, like, I think negative vibe about how life is, or an unrealistic, let me put it that way, an unrealistic vibe about how life is. This is life. It's not life. It's life for a comedian or whatever, but there's a lot of other things to life rather than just that.
Well, they were not, that was one thing I didn't do, was have them in the comedy clubs. Like some people have their kids sleeping in the back and all that. And even as a single mom, it was hard to do that. But I wanted them to have their own normalcy. I didn't expose my kids. I didn't want my kids, like, I didn't put them on the internet like that. Like, I felt like they have a right to their privacy and their own lives. And if they want to be a part of it later, that they can. But I just didn't want to exploit them. And so comedians can be dark and they can be cynical. And now with the internet and television and the fact that you're exposed to so much, I wanted them to have some semblance of innocence and maintain their childhood as long as they could, because man, you can watch 2 girls in a cup. Like, I was just like, it's just so much stimulus all the time. You can go to the gas station and there are TV shows playing. So I just make sure that my kids went to Montessori school. I wanted them to just be stimulated in other ways through reading and art and manipulation and learning science and tech stuff. And I just wanted to expose them so much, because I feel like we live in LA, the entertainment business is here. So if they want to pursue it, they can just walk down the street. But I wanted to give them a shot to be exposed to other things outside of the entertainment business. Entertainers are always inundating their kids with Hollywood stuff. And it's so toxic. Like, just, if they want to do it, let them do it later. But science is great.
Good. I mean, I love what you did. I mean, that's great, because I don't think like, it would almost be like me bringing my kids in when they were little to bartend with me.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the smartest thing in the world. But getting back to your comedy, you did Last Comic Standing in, I believe it was season 8.
Yeah.
And got to the semifinals, which
I got to the finals.
Oh, to the finals. I'm sorry, not to the semifinals. Yes, to the finals. It was like, and who won that year?
I believe Rodman won.
Okay.
Yeah, Rodman won that year.
That was because did that show serve as an impetus for you to some degree?
Yeah, it exposed me to a part of the country that had not seen me because I wasn't touring. I wasn't headlining on the road yet. I was still featuring. Yeah, it gave me great exposure. A lot of people like, comedians are negative and they down everything, but I was like, it just created a way for me. And
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of people told me, I remember Dave Chappelle was like, don't do that show. That's a reality show. You're a comedian. And I was like, yeah, it's not like you're going to take me on the road with you. So I have to do
Right.
whatever I needed to do. I just made sure that I showed up like a comedian and I had my sets and I wrote them. And I feel like no matter where you are, whether you are doing Last Comic Standing or a cruise, you are a comic or you're
Hmm.
not, you know?
It's interesting because I guess, kind of old school, what Dave Chappelle told you is that's the thought,
Right.
but it's a different world out there now. You
Yeah.
know, doing social media, or not doing social media, doing a reality show is not looked down upon. I mean, our damn president was a reality
Living
show.
star, right?
Yeah, so it's like, it's different. It's a good, I'm glad that you just went ahead and did what you felt you wanted to do and
Yeah.
what you felt helped your career, because the rest of it, when you listen to other people, it's always from their perspective,
It's easy to
and
say
so
to somebody that don't do a reality show where you're gonna make, $3,000 a month when you walked away from a $50 million deal
right.
and you can go to Africa and have a sabbatical where I'm still surviving, trying to figure out how I'm gonna pay my rent.
It's usually the people that have money that will say to you, like, I wouldn't take that job. They'll pigeonhole you
You
this
don't
way.
have
No,
to.
no, no, no. And you're going like, well, wait a minute, I have to eat.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not at your level yet, but it's that kind of advice, and I'm sure he was well-meaning. Just
Of
isn't,
course, of course.
yeah, isn't you got to do what you did, which is what you want to do.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the Young Turks.
Okay.
How long have you been doing that?
I just figured yesterday. I figured out I've been doing it for 5 years now. I didn't realize that it had been that long.
And this is a political podcast.
Yeah, it's a political show. They consider themselves progressives. It's a progressive
Hmm.
platform. Me, Alonzo Bowden, Maz Jobrani, Helen Hong. They have panels and they usually bring on comedians to also participate in the conversation. But I don't. I have carved a space for myself where I'm not an advocate for political parties. I don't identify. I'm not a Red Sox or a Yankee. Like I just don't.
Hmm.
I don't subscribe to that thinking. I am an advocate of policies for change for people. So
Hmm.
for me, I just don't get caught up in that. I'm a liberal conservative. I think people have a right to believe whatever they want to believe, so long as it's not harmful to other people. And I'm really concerned with, the politics of economics in this country, which is what we really are suffering from is toxic capitalism and the top percent oppressing all people and then having us divided with, issues of sexuality and race and gender
Hmm.
while they continue to eat and Jeff Bezos makes $1 trillion and the rest of us are just down here scrambling for crumbs.
Right.
So I try my best not to keep to get caught up in advocating for politicians and stuff like that, and just maintaining myself on the ground to
Well,
talk about the
good,
people.
good for you, because I think it was just yesterday. I was talking with my wife about politics, and I said to her, "It is so screwy out there, and you don't know who to believe."
That's
I
right.
am I am not a Republican. I am not a Democrat. I'm just going to decide who I want to vote for on the issues, and
Yeah,
that's it. It doesn't matter because everybody's lying to me. Nobody's telling me the truth.
it's a wash
So,
at this point. We need to just start from scratch. It's a
well,
mess.
we are that screwed up that you're right. And I also feel that, maybe we should do away with all adults. Unfortunately, we're adults, and let the kids start. Let
They're
the
doing
kids
it.
without the prejudices, without all the stuff that we put in their heads, because it's tough. It's nuts. But I admire the like I am, I'll use the term independent, but it's not a political independent. Just you just decide for yourself. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter the party.
Yeah, I'm not, I don't call myself a centrist because I think that's dangerous too. Because they are also advocating in some way. Because it's just when you start following the money and you start realizing like all of the people that are getting paid by companies to lobby for stuff, that affects our health. Like you think about like all these pharmaceutical companies, like it's just gotten crazy and out of hand.
Hmm.
And then we are fighting for these people who are super rich and not realizing that they're doing us all harm. And so
Yeah.
for me, it's like I'm not gonna lie and say, I'm a Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump has good point. I think Donald Trump is toxic and has caused so much drama in this company, I mean in this country. But I just think that there are so many Democrats that are just as toxic and ridiculous as him. And it's just crazy to log on to television, to your internet, and see some of the things that these people say now. Like
Right.
there was a time where there was at least a code of decency and respect that you didn't see people like. I look at the tweets and I'm like Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump going back and forth, and I'm like, can you imagine having to raise children in this climate where you're telling your kids be respectful, don't say things about people that treat people the way you want to be treated, and
Yeah.
then they look at their leaders of the country and say, but look at what such and such said, and it's just
Yeah.
like. And even if Donald Trump is the biggest buffoon on the planet, he should not bring that out of other people. Like now you're acting like him, but your top point, it's just a mess. So
Right.
for me, it's like, when people try to like put me in these corners, and I'm like, nah, we gotta advocate for the people because they're advocating for each other. They're not even thinking about, poor
Well,
people.
that's it. I don't think most people realize that, we've put these people in power no matter who they are. They are supposed to be serving us, who they're not. Most of them are serving their own agendas, which
Yeah,
whatever they may be. And as for the rest of us, we're just left out there uh, hanging,
yeah,
and we go along with it.
yeah.
It's like we don't use our voting right to oust the people that are not serving us, who we put in.
Yeah,
You
because
know,
we're
they
being driven by emotion
Yeah,
and not logic. So you have so many people being told things that trigger them because of their own circumstances, and it's never about the facts.
right. Too many people listen to exactly what you say and don't bother fact checking or finding out if what you said is true,
Yeah.
because you can argue on both sides. Well, I can't believe that, that's true, and then you go to the other side and they go it's true, but nobody's going to tell you the facts.
Yeah.
They're just giving you your opinion. But enough of that. Let's enough of politics for a minute. Um, you know, your first time on stage anywhere other than open mic was where?
So the very first time I was on stage was in Arizona. It was in Phoenix. I was doing radio at Jamie Foxx's Sirius station, and they put me on this show. And the weird thing is for me as a comedian, my very first show I got paid for. I got paid $500. They flew me
Wow.
to Arizona and they gave me a hotel room, which was it was so deceitful because I would just do nothing but struggle from that point forward. And to think that that was what it was going to be like was so just off. I performed at a place called the Orpheum Theater in Arizona, in Phoenix. And I did this show with some of the comedians that Jamie Foxx had on the station. And I did 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And it's so funny it was just adrenaline. And most comedians will tell you that their first time on stage, they did well. They got laughs because there is just so much energy that's it doesn't have any direction, any structure. It's just energy. And I had a good set. But when I think about it, I was not talking about anything. Like it
Mhm.
was just sheer energy going back and forth with the audience, not realizing what a set was. and
Yeah.
not realizing how long 5 minutes is on stage when you're a
How, how
comic.
did you get that job to begin with?
I did the station. I was on the station, and they just hazed me. They were like, you're gonna do it. You're gonna do a show. You've been doing the open mics. You've been writing. This is gonna be your first show. And I just think they needed to fill the slot, and they wanted a woman because they have so many guys, and they just made me do it, and it was
Yeah, comedy has not been, let's say, kind to women over the years. There's more and more women, but obviously not enough. I don't know how you want to term that, but even when you see a lineup, to not see a woman's name on there is not unusual.
yep,
To see a woman's name on the lineup becomes unusual.
yeah.
It's a struggle. Again, I would imagine. Have you come up against any prejudices in terms of being? You notice I'm all over the place, by the way. Have,
That's a conversation though. That's a
yeah,
conversation.
have you run into any prejudices and as you've been working
Yeah.
against Latinas or whatever?
Oh man, I mean, if like we're at the bottom of the totem pole. Like there's like four of us. Like it's me, Angela Johnson, Christella, and Gina Brion, who are really like headlining across the country.
Hmm.
I do. I mean, I have, and I think a lot of us have. What's funny is that I think that because I've been through what I've been through in life, like this one more thing is just like, we'll get, like just push past it. I just, I sit down, I talk to a lot of women, and we have these conversations, and I'm like, what are we gonna do about it? Like, because that's who I am, right? Like, I was like,
Hmm.
because I'm not a whine and whimper on Twitter for days about, being mistreated as a woman in comedy, specifically a woman of color. But I just think, yeah, I've had my moments. I think the thing that I like to advocate for most is the safety of women, specifically when they're on the road, because the experience for women on the road is very different than it is for men. And it's not the same, like a guy can take a chick home back to the hotel and have that night. Women are in danger when they do that, when they're on the road.
Yeah.
So I just think people don't realize that as much as, there is a Amy Schumer and a Tiffany Haddish, that we don't have that many women who are in that tax bracket who are comedians. So a lot of us are on the ground doing the work, and we have to get on these planes, and we get in these cars, and we get on the road, and we have to deal with sexism. But the sexism that we have to deal with can be violent, and it can be
Yeah.
dangerous for us. So it's,
Yeah, you would hope that over the years that kind of garbage, gets thrown out, but it doesn't. It never will because unfortunately, people are people,
yeah,
and there are good people and not.
yeah,
And if you run into the not, that's when you have a problem.
yeah.
And especially as a woman, I can't imagine what it would be like as a woman to get up there on stage and afterwards go like, I'd like to take somebody back home. I've been on the road, but it's like I don't want to get killed. I mean, that's
Oh,
what the
sir.
guys do. The guys do stuff like that, and it's like you said, not a problem
Yeah.
with a woman. You want to make sure you get out alive.
Yeah, no, it's not. In addition to that, you got to deal with Eddie with people saying, I don't really like women, but I think you're funny, or you're
Oh
funny for
God.
a girl. Like you got to deal with that. You got to deal with getting paid less.
Hmm.
You get heckled because some people, when they find out it's a woman, they leave. They don't want to even watch because they don't think women are funny. And you would think in 2019, 2020, you wouldn't be dealing with that, but you do. And there are a lot of people who, they just they don't like outspoken women.
Right. I was just going to ask you about that in terms of hecklers. Do you run across that a lot? People yelling out anti-woman things and stuff like that, like, what are you doing up there, bitch?
No, you know what? I mean, I've had my share of hecklers, but I don't think that heckling is a big problem for me because I endear the audience, and my audience always takes care of my hecklers for me, where I don't have to do it. I just think it's a disservice to the people who buy tickets to come see you to go back and forth with a heckler, to just go back
Yeah.
and back and forth. It just steals the show from the people who pay for a babysitter, pay for parking, got off of work, they had a rough week, and now you're gonna dedicate a portion of your show to going back and forth with some idiot who's had too many drinks. So I just condition my audience. I just try to be endearing and loving and good to my audience. And then my audience gives it back to me. So when somebody pops off to me, it happened to me in Houston, my audience just turned around and they just eviscerated the heckler that they left. Like they
Oh,
were,
that's great. That's what you need. I agree with what you just said.
yeah.
Um, God, I just lost my thought. I was going to ask you something. You have your own podcast
I do. I do.
called.
It's called Truth Serum. It's we do it Fridays at 12 p.m. It's a visual podcast. And we talk about political and social issues and comedy, but
Mhm.
just from the perspective of people. I have a lot of people of color on the show who don't get a chance to speak out in other places, but it's not, we don't come there to talk about political parties. We just come there to talk about the issues. So I just don't think we don't explore nuance anymore. It's like you're either on one side of the issue or the other, and we never talk about everything in between. So if we talk about abortion, then everybody has an opportunity to talk about why they feel the way they feel. And
Right.
we just want to have conversations that you can't have anymore because now you either on Fox News or CNN, and those are just, people get checks for that, right? So you have corporations feeding into that, and so we're not having just conversations about people and their humanity and why they feel the way that they feel, and they should have a right to feel the way that they feel. So that's what I want to do. And so I have like different people come on and we just unpack the issues. If we're going to talk about immigration, you're not going to say, well, the Democrats, because the Democrat. No, we're just going to talk about the issue of immigration. Bring your facts and let's talk about that.
Do you have mainly comedians or people from all walks?
I have people from all walks. I've had comedians. I've had people who are, voices. I had I had a show about political parties when we talked about the political parties, and I had one of the people who's a CNN commentator, and I had a person that is that's done Fox News, and then I had a person who's a progressive, and they just talked about informing people what the political parties are supposed to be doing as opposed to what they've been doing, and talking about why they chose the political party. I had a Black woman who is a Republican, who is always getting like pulverized by Black people for being a Republican. And, she had a very healthy argument for why she's a Republican. I couldn't take her down for that, but she's a decent person, very intelligent, and
Well,
was,
I've, in all my life, which is probably a few more years than you, um, politics or Democrat or Republican really didn't matter. What mattered, we all knew we had different views, but now it's not that way. It's
no, it's not.
almost, if you're one or the other, it's very rare that you're getting along.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's gotten sad that all that has transpired because of, in my opinion, what's in the White House. But,
It's also who has the bullhorns, because
yeah,
most people in the country are working and they're not on Twitter. So when you go to social media, you see the people who have the bullhorn speaking on behalf of a whole bunch of people that you never hear from because they don't have time to be on Twitter. If you work at a towel mill or you're building cars, you don't have time to be tweeting or on Facebook. So
hmm
you have the people who are capitalizing on this hateful talk because they've made it a business, telling the story of people you never, most people are decent. Like if you go across the country and you talk to people, you see all these videos of all these crazy ass people, but you look around in your habitat, do you really know that many people who are evil and doing wrong? It's probably
hmm
not the case. It's just,
people forget that, we're all individuals, no matter what your beliefs are, religious, political, whatever. It's like, you can have your belief as
yeah,
long as, in my opinion, as long as you don't force it on me. we're fine.
And
I'm
that's
fine.
the talk. That's the abortion and immigration really splits people to the degree where people want to fight.
Hmm.
But it's when you start talking about those things, really, like, do you have the right to tell a woman who was raised in a Christian church, her whole life, that was told that if she had an abortion, that she would burn in hell, that that she shouldn't think like that? I mean, that's your opinion, but you can't take that away from that person. Like, my issue is, if your beliefs are implemented in laws that are affecting people and affecting the progress of people, but what you personally believe is none of my business. And so
Right.
I think that when we get into all of that, when we start having these conversations, now politicians they distract you by gaslighting you with all of this stuff, like, hey, the immigrants are trying to steal you, people are going to burn in hell. Meanwhile, you're fighting about all of this. They're passing laws for the people they're getting money from that are holding us all down. And
Hmm.
so that's why what I want to do is just give people information. They can make their own decisions, because I don't think the average person has the time to know all of this because they're too busy surviving.
Well, that might explain why when they listen to a CNN or a Fox, they just believe it automatically.
Absolutely.
They're too busy to think for themselves.
It's so
I personally have gotten to the point with any network that I will just listen to like the 6 o'clock news or 11 o'clock news on a network like
yeah,
247, because I'm more likely to just get what's going on, not
yeah,
not the reporter's opinion about whatever. They don't have enough time. It's a half hour or an hour. The other shows, you listen to the hosts of the CNN or Fox networks, and what you get is a lot of conjecture, a
yeah.
lot of people going like, well, this is what happened. And then you go, well, wait a minute, I just watched that. That's not what happened.
Exactly. Well, a lot of them are not journalists. Some of them are just television personalities, and their shows are reality shows. And people
Hmm.
don't realize that. So you're watching a show and you think you're getting news, but that's what they're giving you is their opinion of what's happening. And they don't have an ounce of journalism, education or whatsoever. And that's the problem. Like, it's, you know, Ann Coulter and Don Lemon and all of them, they're just trying to sell books. They're
Yeah,
trying to get Twitter followers because they're making a lot of money off of the conflict that's
I
happening.
know. Twitter, YouTube, all the rest of that, and look, good for them. It's
Good
just
for
that,
them.
yeah, I just wish it would be earned by facts and reality as opposed to, I'm sure the people want to hear this,
Right.
whether it's true or not coming from me. And we're a screwed up species. We really are. We've like we've brought ourselves to the point where we're at, which is almost to the point of extinction. We have
Yeah.
no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, or what idiot's going to say something to make, I don't know, the stock market go up, the stock market go down, our finances leave us. It's like we're at the mercy of people that lie, but
Yeah.
we gave them that power to
Yeah.
lie. And so we're at fault, and it's our job to get them out of wherever we got them. And but anyway, I get on my soapbox.
I like to get up your soapbox, though.
it, it it's a crazy world out there. I am so happy that I'm around comedy,
Yeah.
with everybody. I've like I told you before, I've never done stand up, nor do I have a desire to do stand up, because I can only tell the worst jokes that there are. And you could give me the best joke you have, and I'll destroy it. It just, that's how bad off I am, excuse me, as far as telling jokes go. Have you had an experience on stage where you would kind of say, this is like the worst moment of my life in stand up? It was just so bad. It was like, while you're doing it, you go like, I think I'm getting out of this, you
Yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah. I did a set on so I was working in New York at the Cellar, And I had a really good set. And Taylor Hackford, who directed An Officer and a Gentleman, and he directed Jamie Foxx's movie Ray, and Robert De Niro were in the audience. And they picked me to be in the movie The Comedian with Robert De Niro. So when we go to shoot the show is shot, the movie, they decide to have an actual live show, like a real comedy show, and just shoot
Hmm.
the show and put it in the movie. And Robert De Niro is supposed to perform on the show. He's on the lineup with us. So like any movie, they're behind on production. People are standing outside in line for this show because they stand in line for in New York for the cellar. They line up. They end up in that line for hours. It's freezing because the show, it's in the winter, and the show, the movie is behind schedule. And so then when they come in, Robert De Niro announces that he's not going to be on the show because he's been on set for hours and he's really tired. So I'm
Oh,
on a
wow.
lineup with three men on this show who are all very familiar, who are familiar faces in the New York comedy scene. And I was new to the cellar. I had just gotten past. And when I got on stage, they were not having any part of it. I bombed from beginning to end. I got angry. I turned on the audience. I started chastising the people in the audience for not laughing. It was horrific. I went straight from the stage. I got my stuff, got in an Uber and went straight to the airport and got out of New York
Oh God, that's crazy.
and flew
Let me
straight.
get out of Dodge while I can before the show ends and they come after me.
I was like out there and they killed me after the show. It was terrible. It was changing. It was life changing, not life changing, but it made a big impact for me in terms of comedy. Because I lost myself because I valued that stage so much. And because I was like, I'm at the cellar, I can't bomb. I pressured myself so much that who I am on stage, relaxed and just authentically myself went away. It left me. And I was on the stage doing my greatest impression of what I thought a comedian should be. And it just
Ah,
failed. It was horrible. It was,
yeah, that's interesting that you use that term, greatest impression of a comedian.
yeah.
That's because I was once told by a casting director who I auditioned for and didn't get the part, who I kind of knew. I asked her, what were there any issues with my performance or what, or this or that with my audition, and I just wanted some feedback. And she said, "Can you take honesty?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I called you in to read, and you brought an actor. You did not
Um,
bring yourself in. You
yep.
came in here and you performed as an actor instead of performing as Eddie Burke, which is why I brought you in. That's what I wanted." And so it's, something, as she said, something for you to think about in the future. When you go in, you don't go in as an actor, you go in as whatever, however, doing your own thing. And that just brought that to mind because of you saying it's doing my impression of a
Oh, yeah.
comedian, because that's a kind of a tough thing to accomplish, period, because you are a comedian,
Yeah.
period.
But I was on stage like so little, and it was just when I think back at it, because I'll see me in the movie because they didn't cut me out the movie, which I was like, they're gonna cut me out of this movie. I can see myself and I was just like, oh, that's not me. That's not, it was a lesson. It was great for me
Hmm.
to understand that
You,
you can't you got to show up as you because you will eventually show up anyway.
yeah, well, you do. You have to show up, and if you're not mentally there, you get yourself there.
Yeah.
You have to, because as you said, well, I got it. I was saying yesterday to somebody, one person in the audience or 100, that
Yep.
one person can make your career or break, if that's the person. Well, you have other projects coming up right now?
So yeah, I'm developing my TV show with HBO Max. I actually brought Tiffanny on board and threw the rope back to her and made her an executive producer on my show with me. So we're developing right now. We've been writing and going back and forth with the network. And then I have an hour special that I got to deal with HBO Max that I'm also getting ready for that I'm going to shoot next year because of COVID-19. I haven't been able to get out and work it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have an animated series that I'm working on with ITV Studios. So I've been pretty busy and
Yeah, good for you. That's great.
doing a lot of writing.
And your the show that you're working on with Tiffanny on HBO is what's that all about? Is it a just comedians or what have you?
No, it's a stand-up. It's not a stand-up show. It's based on my comedy. It's
Uh-huh.
a but it's a very interesting, like we call it a dramedy, and it talks about and it's just me telling my life and through comedy, the dark parts of my life through comedy. And I'm really excited about it because it's very different. It's probably something that people haven't seen before.
Good. Well, get it developed so we can see it.
Yeah,
Get
we're
it
working on
developed and
it. We
going.
do it. We're excited about it. Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. It's
No.
been just a pleasure talking to you. And before you go, I want to I'm going to send this to you. One of my unlimited versions of my t-shirt.
Oh, I didn't know you had one. I was looking at the one you had on.
Yeah, Eddie's Bar at the Improv. This is the
Oh, I
same
want
shirt.
one.
That's the back. That's the front. You'll give me your address off
I'll text it.
camera, and I will send you one as soon as possible.
Yeah, I was
And
looking at yours right now, and I was like, I want one. I was gonna say I want one of those shirts.
you're going to get one.
Uh,
Without a doubt, you got one. Again, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
oh no, I love you. I'll show up for you anytime.
Thank you, sweetie. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. If you tuned in, by the way, I've got 3 listeners, maybe 4. So we'll see you guys. Keep tuning in, and I will see you next time. Peace out.